everybody in Facebook land. Thank you all for coming tonight live. This is going to be great. Um, I'm going to try to make sure the volume works for you guys. We are working on a microphone solution, but in the meantime, this seems to be working pretty well. So it's good to have you here. And if you're here for the class on how to make a cherry pie, you're in the wrong class. This is actually the class on how to build your immunity. And what's really fun about this, guys, is Dr. Paul and I have been colleagues ever since we graduated, but we met about 25 years ago, and we actually found that we really like doing classes together. So probably by the end of 2025, we'll have done 3 together. Is that right? Or so? Yeah. So you can decide at the end of it if we're like Thunder and Lightning or Peanut Butter and Jelly or Evan Costello. I don't know what the team that could be, but we all have our own practices and we have these emphases that we have. And what you'll learn is that when you're talking about natural health, you can jump into just about anywhere you want to make a positive change. What it will lead to is changes you can make in other areas. It doesn't mean that your initial one was bad. It just means it was maybe incomplete. And when you get the whole package together, I think you'll be able to walk away from tonight and say, I understand now why I'm focusing on all these different areas because they do build upon each other. I would say they're actually synergistic. To work on nutrition is a great thing. To work on your nutrition plus your nervous system is like more than doubly good. And if you add in exercise and all sorts of neat things like that, it's just really wonderful. What you can see, the experience that I've seen in people's lives when they start to just do these one thing at a time and just add more and more good things is they're completely different people within a year or two's time. It's just really wonderful. So this class we have here is called Understand the Immune System, How to Stay Healthy in an Unhealthy World. And what I want you to understand is that we have had to look at our immune systems, whether you wanted to or not, based on the last 5 years. Would you agree? Did the world change pretty dramatically simply because of what was happening with people's immune systems, right? Huge things, economies were being dramatically affected, travel was being affected, schools were being affected. And so there was a real push to, first of all, try to arrest whatever was going on. But then when people started looking at the data, they said, it's so interesting to see that this is not hitting everybody equally. There's some people who really are being negatively affected by this way more than others. In fact, what they said, I think it was the first paper I saw on this about 1 month after COVID had actually caused the major changes, the state of emergency was declared, was that people actually had the comorbidities of like, say, high blood cholesterol, high blood fats, high blood sugar, all those things that were dramatically more affected in terms of being hospitalized and having the progression of things that would happen. Just looking at one factor in South Korea, this is a paper Dr. Paul and I came across. It doesn't get mentioned in this talk here, but they said that when they were doing the study looking at the health of that country, that when they saw people who were exercising not at all, and they started breaking down like 30 minutes a week, 60 minutes a week, 90 minutes a week, 120 minutes, and then there was one group that was 150 minutes a week, which would be essentially if you were exercising, that would be what, 5 days a week, 30 minutes, right? That group actually had somewhere in the ballpark of like 50 to 90% less sickness, just even getting COVID in the first place. Next, actually needing medical attention for it. Thirdly, being hospitalized. Fourth, actually having ventilation and finally dying from it. I think by the time you get to the death thing, it was like 93% less death if you were exercising 150 minutes a week or more. And one of the things they said was that exercise forces your body to do what's called immunosurveillance, meaning your body, when you go outside in an exercise environment or go to a gym, we're exposed to a lot more different things than you would normally find in your house. Your immune system starts to get very strong and smart, figuring out what do I need to actually address here and what do I leave alone, right? You just get smarter. And so we can train these things. And so hopefully you come away from this class empowered and you can really appreciate what we have to do here. So you can actually have strong immunity, but you have to be willing to work for it. Now, this year I made a concerted effort to make sure I would not miss any days from work sick. I didn't just want to have that happen to me. So my exercise plan has been so-so. My sleep has been so-so, but my nutrition has been spot on. Like I've actually sure I take all the supplements that I normally take, and I've really tried to make sure I'm eating about 80% clean. And lo and behold, this winter, and I don't feel like I need to knock on wood or anything. I just know it did it. I actually have had no days missed. In fact, I even really had a sniffle. I was telling Dr. Paul about 2 weeks ago, we had a little girl come in with her mom. She says her mom was telling us that, little so-and-so has been kind of sick this week. And she lays down on her back and she goes, achoo, right in my open mouth. I felt all the droplets go in there too. And I thought, if this ever was an immune system challenge, this is going to be it. I didn't get sick, But again, I stayed on that nutrition program. And so it really has helped a lot there too. We have to make sure that we work for it too. And so there's 3 parts to the immune system. We're trying to keep it as simple as we can. It's obviously very complex. People who actually have their PhDs that focus only on this. And we're not going to try to talk about this at that level of expertise. They say an expert is a person who knows more and more about less and less until they know absolutely everything about nothing. Okay. I don't want that to be the case tonight. We're going to make it as basic as you can, but talk to you about what you can do to actually improve how your immune system works. And so Dr. Paul is going to break these down for you first, and he'll cover a lot of the nutrition stuff that he actually is really specialized in. And I'm going to bring in the chiropractic component because what you're going to see is when you're taking care of your nervous system, all the pathways we're going to show you here simply work better. This is something you can actually go look up because your tax dollars pay for this research. You can actually can find it online too, which is great. So without further ado, here's Dr. Paul.
All right.
There you go, man.
So there are basically three parts to your immune system. Okay. There's the innate immune system. That's like the 900-pound gorilla of your immune system. That's your white blood cells. That's what happens when you get a cut and and you get an infection and it gets pussy. That's your immune system working. It's that's the immune system that works when little girls cough in your mouth like they did with Lynn. Okay, that's when you're exposed to things. You're exposed to germs. You're exposed to microbes. That's your innate immune system. We're going to talk about how to keep that strong. Your adaptive immune system is a part of your immune system that starts to remember things. And that's the part that theoretically works when you get a vaccine. Okay, so your adaptive immune system, your B and T cells that remember, oh yeah, I got that flu 3 years ago, and I remember, and it can remember and fight against it. The problem with this is the adaptive immune system is that a lot of the problems, the infections that we encounter are mutating so fast that it's hard for the adaptive immune system to keep up with it. That's why we need to keep our innate immune system strong. And we're going to talk about how to do that. And then finally, there's a gut barrier and the microbiome. And 90, that's a little high. 70 to 80% of your immune system is in your gut. Okay, 70, 80%. And your gut health is incredibly important, not only with your immune system, but with every other system of your body. In fact, I ran across some articles. I was doing this for one of my patients, and I ran across 3 articles that linked eye problems, all kinds of eye problems, to gut issues. Okay, so if your gut is screwed up, it can screw up your eyes, your liver, your heart. I do a test in my office called the TMAO test, which looks at the health of the gut in relationship to heart problems. And if that test is high, that means you got a gut problem that's affecting the heart, and you need to fix the gut. And so the gut's really important. We're going to spend a lot of time on that. So this picture here, just a little diagram of the 3 parts of the immune system. So the innate immunity is your neutrophils. These things you get measured on a blood test, eosinophils. Adaptive immunity is T cells and B cells. And then you have the physical barriers of your gut. And those barriers, those gut barriers are really important. And if you look at that little blue streak up there, little blue half moon arc, that's mucus. And that mucus layer in your gut is incredibly important. And here's the thing, I'm gonna say this several times. If you don't feed your gut's gonna feed on you. And what's gonna feed on is that mucus layer up there. And once that's gone, then you have what's called leaky gut, and that leads to autoimmune problems and all sorts of other issues that we see it all the time in our culture. So the innate immune system, first line of defense. It's immediate response to a challenge. It releases inflammatory chemicals. These are called cytokines. You may have heard of them. Cytokines are the language of the immune system. Cytokines are responsible for most of the symptoms you get when you get sick. And then antimicrobial chemicals are also released. White blood cells, macrophages, all your white cells play a real important part in that. So the quality of one's diet and nutritional status is crucial to a strong immune response. So I'm going to ask you a question. If you live off chips and soda, do you think you can make healthy white blood cells? Anybody think you can? Okay, no, you can't make healthy white bloods. You can't make healthy anything in your body off chips and soda. Okay, so we need a really good diet for this innate immune system. A diet high in refined carbohydrates, fast food, and highly processed food will really tank the immune system. So I'm going to ask you another question. If you look at the average American, average, I'm not saying any of you are in this, I'm just saying average, okay? What percentage of the diet is highly processed food? What'd you say? 50? Okay. Anybody else? 50 going once? 75. 73. You're pretty close, Paul. 73% of the average American diet is highly processed food. Now, I'm going to give you a figure. I got this out of the British Medical Journal several years ago. For every 10% in your diet, the amount of processed food goes up, your chances for cancer go up 12%. Okay, so when you tamp down the amount of processed food in your diet, your chances for cancer go down as well. That was a study that was published in the British Medical Journal. So low vitamin, low mineral, no nutrients, a low nutrient status, which it's what you're going to get when you get with chips and soda, will blunt the immune response.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I feel like people talk all the time about processed food, processed food, processed food. Can you just define that?
Okay. So most of the food you find in a package, okay, with all kinds of chemicals on that you don't know the meaning of, and you don't know how they work in your body. Okay, anything that has processed vegetable oils in it, like you read on it says cottonseed oil, safflower oil, corn oil, anything like that, processed. Okay, uh, anything that where you read on the label the first ingredient is sugar or high fructose corn syrup, that's processed. Okay. Anybody else want to take a stab at what I don't know. Anybody else have a better explanation for that than that? Maybe you do. I don't know.
I'll throw this one out there, Paul. It would be if this food product at one point was growing, walking or running, flying or swimming. You put a lot of steps between that and you actually on your plate. That's processed, right? How much processing goes from broccoli in your garden to your plate? About one, right? Because inside is washed, steamed, and there it is. That's unprocessed food, right? Now, set it through, like we do with sugar cane, and then it comes out as this pure white crystalline thing. There's all these condensed calories, nothing in there. That's highly processed.
It is.
The longer the shelf life it has, highly
Yeah.
processed.
Somebody that ran a nutrition company in Georgia, when I lived in Georgia, told me that the shelf life of Hostess Twinkies is 10 years. 10 years, okay. So, I mean, if you got some Hostess Twinkies at home, they'll probably be okay for a while, okay?
All right. So I just want to mention this slide real quick, guys. I like this one, and thank you, Dr. Paul. This is to reiterate what Dr. Paul said. In 1973, there was a study done. I guarantee this was not paid for by Coca-Cola because it would make you think twice about it. So Dr. Sanchez and his team, they took sugar and they put roughly the equivalent of what you would find in one can of soda. So 12 ounces of soda would have about 100 grams of sugar, which is, I think, roughly, 12 to 13 tablespoons, something like that. And they measured people's white blood cell response at the start, and then they gave them the sugar, and they measured it, I think, at 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and 5 hours later. What they showed was that individuals who actually were given sugar, within 5 hours, their white blood cell activity was reduced by 40%. Now, that is a lot, right? That's the thing that's responsible for fighting off infection things, also controlling the abnormal growths in your body. Your immune system actually kills off cancer cells too. So when do you typically think of cold and flu season happening? What do people describe as a cold and flu season? Winter, right? Yeah, if you say it's getting cold out there, it's getting drier. Yes, the climate does change. But far more than what changes outside is actually how you change on the inside. Dr. Paul and I were talking about this. It seems now it starts earlier and earlier, right? So Halloween comes around. We go around and give kids what? Candy, right? Then when there's Thanksgiving, step up to the trough. Here we go, right? Then in December, we have people bringing goodies by the whole month. January, New Year's parties. February, Valentine's, which usually is what? Heart-shaped boxes full of candy. The Super Bowl, right? And then eventually all this stuff. So basically 6 months of the year, we have given ourselves a license to eat lots of sugar. And we wonder why we get colds and flus. Well, if you're reducing your immunity by 40%, that would make sense, wouldn't it? Right? Isn't that crazy? So there it is. And so again, foods like this that come in a wrapper that are highly processed and ready-made for us to go, that equals poor immunity. This is really interesting. This is actually on chiropractic in this. Your innate immunity, there was a study done by National College, one of our chiropractic colleges back in 1990, and they took people who were chiropractic newbies. They had never had chiropractic care before, and they evaluated them to see, do they actually have subluxations in their thoracic spine? What's the thoracic spine? Any part of your spine has ribs attached to it. That's the thoracic spine. There's 12 of those, right? There's a lot of really important nerves that come from that area that go to your immune system organs. And so they said if they have subluxations, we're going to put them in 3 different groups. There was one group that actually there was a control group, okay? But there was a group that got a sham adjustment, okay, which means they were taken care of. They made the table make a bunch of noise, but there was no actual care being rendered. Some group got a soft tissue related thing, did some massage or trigger point work, and then one group actually got a real adjustment. What they did was before, no matter what your procedure was, they took your blood. So they took your blood from you and they measured how fast your white blood cells were killing things. It's called it's actually a measurement of activity. And what they showed was that people actually got the actual adjustment, had the highest response within 15 minutes when they did a post blood draw. Your white blood cells working 30% more strongly than they were before the adjustment. Isn't that cool? Now, what's interesting too is actually doing something on a sham level and soft tissue did elevate it a little bit, right? So just even thinking you're getting care can improve your scores, but clearly getting adjusted was absolutely the best thing. So we've actually had stories in our office where people come in and say, Doc, I feel like I'm getting a cold. They'll come in to get adjusted. They'll spike a fever within the next hour. It goes like to 102, 103, and it's gone that fast. It literally just goes away that fast. Or they'll come in already being fully sick, and they'll get over it the next day, just because their white blood cells are able to know where to go and actually attack things better when healthy nerves can direct them where to go. Okay? So, Dr. Paul, back to you.
Okay, so the adaptive immune system, we've kind of already gone over this. B cells and T cells leads to memory of problems that you've had, infections that you've had. It's a backup system. So this isn't your main system, it's a backup, okay? And vaccinations exploit the response to induce immunity. Now, the problem with vaccines, there's a couple of issues that I have with them. Number one is that it's a very artificial way to get your immune response, because how are we exposed to most of the germs, most of the microbes that we encounter? Yeah, through our nose, mouth, okay? We might get a cut and get it in there, but with vaccines, they're injected into your system, which is a very artificial way to do it. Here's the other thing about vaccines, and I want you guys to get this. So when you get a vaccine, that creates a very significant inflammatory response in your body. So if you're already inflamed somewhere, that's going to make it worse. All right, and that's why people get side effects to vaccines. At least one of the reasons, they create a tremendous inflammatory response. If you've got inflammation in your heart or inflammation anywhere in your joints, there's a good chance that that is going to exacerbate that or increase it. Now, the immune system looks for danger signals in the body. It recognizes parts of microorganisms that, thank you, that aren't us. So, I mean, bacteria, fungi, viruses, protozoa, parasites, those are all things we encounter. Mold is another thing that we're encountering more and more. And let me tell you something, you'd be surprised at how many people are walking around with mold infections and don't know it, and it's causing a lot of their symptoms. And molds, they're a lot harder, they're more difficult entities to get out of the body. You can, and there's protocols for it, but I just want you to be aware of that, is that a lot of times when you've got problems that you can't identify, like, let me give you an example. Let's say you've got high blood pressure for no reason. It's just there. There's no reason for it. Maybe you need to check the amount of a mold or the amount of toxicity you have in your body, okay? There's reasons why your body's doing what it's doing. So the immune system looks for non-infectious danger signals, injury to tissue or damage to tissue. necrosis, dying tissue, frostbite, gangrene. Your immune system is involved in dealing with that as well. Although, if you've got bad frostbite and you're getting gangrene, your immune system is likely to get overwhelmed if it's not treated. So the greater the danger, the greater the immune inflammatory response. Necrotic cells that are dying from trauma or toxicity or lack of oxygen or blood, are a major source of danger signals to the body. So stress can be a danger signal. Acute stress is pretty healthy, okay? We need acute stress. We need the stress that makes us get up and go to work, for example. We need the stress that makes us get up and exercise is a form of stress. But chronic or long-term stress downregulates the immune system. It decreases the immune cells, limits their function, promotes inflammation, and addressing the stress, the organs of stress in the body, which are your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and your adrenal glands, is vital when immune strategies are needed for long-term stress. So when you have long-term stress, your adrenal glands really take the brunt of that. And your adrenal glands produce cortisol and all of your sex hormones. And if they're not working, you're not going to work very well. Does anybody know what, like, a typical, for example, symptom might be with somebody's got long-term adrenal stress? Anybody know? I saw a woman in my office today like that. Who knows? Nobody knows. You're tired, just tired all the time, wired and tired. Okay, you can't sleep, but you're just fatigued all the time. That's adrenal stress. Now, your adrenals and your thyroid are hooked up together from a biochemical standpoint, and they work together. But just chronic, unrelenting fatigue that you just can't get rid of. So when you have somebody like that, very, very, and when you're that kind of fatigue, when your adrenal glands are just exhausted from stress, your immune system is really tanked. Yeah, you can't, it's really hard to have a decent immune response to anything. So this is a stress response system. This is just a picture of it. And cortisol is produced by your adrenal glands to regulate inflammation and activate the immune system. What is the man-made form of cortisol? Does anybody know? Cortisone, that's right. Yeah. So high and unrelenting chronic stress, poor immunity. Okay. All right.
Can I just one real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, what this article mentions is that you can actually do pre and post measurements on people. And the two best ways to measure how your stress response in this category are, one way is to measure cortisol. They do it usually salivary. They actually measure it they do a swipe of the inside of your cheek. They can measure cortisol levels. And then there's a thing that's a measuring device called heart rate variability, which measures the two sides of your nerve system as it affects your heart. So one of them is the part that speeds things up. That's the fight or flight side. And that's the sympathetics. There's one that down regulates to make your pulse rate go down, which is called the rest and digest side. That's parasympathetic. And what they've shown is pre and post adjustment, when people get taken care of, what happens is that it will improve the balance between those two sides of your nerve system, so you're not living in that constant flight thing. In fact, a lot of people after getting adjusted, they say, I feel so relaxed, I need to go take a nap, kind of thing. And also you can measure their salivary levels of cortisol going down. And it just makes them much more able to fight things off. It's been shown to actually elevate people's mood to the point of lifting depression, which is kind of neat too. So Dr. Paul, you're into part 3 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just recently had a patient a few weeks ago that came in, 40-year-old female. She had a lot of symptoms. One of her symptoms was she had no energy. When I did her workup and her case history, I realized that she probably had adrenal stress, and there was good reason why she had it. And I did what's called an adrenal stress index test on her, where it's a salivary test where she spits in a tube 4 times a day, and then we sent it off, got it back, and her cortisol levels were really low. So she was in a chronic stress state, and she had a lot of other symptoms along with that. And so as we're fixing her adrenal glands nutritionally, she's starting to get her energy back. She's sleeping better, and a lot of things are changing. Uh, okay, let's talk about the gut. The gut, as I said, has more immune cells than the rest of the body put together. About 70% of your immune system is located in your gut, primarily along the ileum and cecum and appendix, which is your small and large intestine. Uh, this surveillance system is very, very important. And you have this gut-brain axis, and it's via the vagus nerve. We have two vagus nerves. One comes out of each side of our head, innervates the heart, lungs, and the GI tract. And the gut and the brain communicate. Now, think about this for a minute. If you have a bad diet, a really bad diet, what do you think that's going to do to your brain with the gut-brain axis? Yes.
You can get really depressed or anxious and have a lot of mental health problems.
Yeah, you're going to have some issues, some brain issues, right? And so what people don't realize, and what we're not told, is that all this processed and sugary food that people are eating are screwing up people's guts, but it's affecting their brain. It's affecting their mental health. This isn't a theory. This is science. This is basic science. In fact, I do an entire talk on the vagus nerve, a whole half-hour talk on that, just understanding that. So here's the ileum. Here's where a lot of your immune systems are, your Peyer's patches. Gut health is, again, part of the immune system. And here's a diagram that shows the relationship between the brain and the gut. Let's talk about the microbiome. So what is the microbiome? Who knows? Who can tell me what it is? Nobody knows. You know what it is. Yeah, the microbes that live in your gut. You got trillions of them, okay? They're really, really, really important, okay? So most of these are non-pathogenic bacteria. Another name for that is commensal bacteria. But you also have viruses. You have pathogenic bacteria in your gut, but they're just kept under control by the good bugs, okay? And they function synergistically with our immune system to protect us against invasion, pathogenic invasion and colonization. So if you eat something that your body that's not good for you, if you have a healthy gut, it can really protect you against this. The gut also actually provides or produces vitamins and nutrients when you eat a healthy diet. So it's part of the whole process of nutrition and giving you good vitamins and nutrients. A lot of that is made by those bacteria. So certain bacteria can encourage increased T cell production, which again is part of your adaptive immune system. They produce short chain fatty acids, which are really, really important for your immune system. And more T cells in the gut from fiber means less inflammation and fewer intestinal dysfunction. So do you want to talk about this slide?
Sure. Yeah. This is the thing that Dr. Paul mentioned, short chain fatty acids. And if you include these in your diet, it absolutely will actually help feed those critters. They have to live on something. So we often hear about probiotics, things that promote good gut health. Well, they have to live off of prebiotics. And what this shows is that the evidence is, this is actually a review of literature, I believe, that short chain fatty acids play an important role in maintaining that gut health. If those things are present in your diet, the chances are, if Dr. Paul, you actually can do a culture, can't you, of what's living in their gut?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, that you're going to be growing the right ones, because there's some you don't want growing there. And if you actually have ever been on long-term antibiotic therapy, if you actually have eaten food that actually has been pre-treated with antibiotics, like many food that's raised in like a large cluster of things to give them prophylactically antibiotics so they don't get sick, well, you're consuming that, it's going to change how your gut biome actually works. So you want to make sure you feed them the right things. That's all I want to say.
Yeah. So So known causes of dysfunction or in the gut immune system. Now, these are things that screw up your microbiome, that screw up the bacteria in your gut. And by the way, let me just say this. All of us have some of the same bacteria, and all of us have very different bacteria because we're all different people. And so the bacteria in our gut, the bacterial profile in our gut is as different as how we look. So like we're all human beings, we have 2 arms, 2 legs. So we have a certain amount of bacteria that's exactly the same. That's why certain probiotics don't work for everybody, because if you don't need what you're getting in that probiotic, it's not going to work. Well, how do you know if you need it? Well, everybody's different. You don't know. Sometimes the only way you find out is if you take it. Now, I'm not a huge, I don't give a lot of probiotics out in my office, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But here's the things that can really mess up your microbiome: high sugar diets and bad fats, processed food. Okay. Another thing is like getting something like food poisoning or Montezuma's revenge in a foreign country where it's coming out of both ends. That can, I've seen people where they get that and they're never the same again after that. It's really changed their microbiome. Now that can be helped, that can be corrected, but that's a problem. Chronic inflammation, toxic exposures. And this is something I'm doing a lot more of in my office recently because so many people are toxic. And I just did my own study on myself. I did a toxicity test on myself and found out that, I'm carrying some toxins that I need to get rid of. And my toxic profile needs to be lowered. And I eat a pretty clean diet. I exercise regularly. I take a lot of good supplements. It's not enough. I need to do some other things. Emulsifiers screw up your gut. Where do you get emulsifiers from? Anybody?
Isn't that gum, like gum products?
Yeah, gum. How about toothpaste? Anybody brush with Crest or Colgate? Lots of emulsifiers in there. Okay. I don't brush with that, but some people do. All right. Loss of fermentable fibers that you don't get in processed food. Antibiotics. Most pharmaceuticals, not all pharmaceuticals, but most pharmaceuticals alter the microbiome. Okay. I don't think there's research evidence that they all do. There's a lot of them that mess up the gut microbiome. Genetic predisposition, like, how you were raised, what kind of environment were you raised around? And then, like I said before, other pathogens such as mold or fungi. So this is the immune hypothesis. I think you wanted to go over this, didn't you?
So this is what you hear more and more people talking about: kids being raised in these almost aseptic environments. The parents who are hovering around their child with a Clorox wipe, and before they touch anything, they wipe it all down. And so the kid is never getting exposed to the normal germ field you would say that's out there. And so they never get a chance to develop their immunity the way they should. What they've shown is if you have no regular exposure to pathogens, keeps your immune system strong and on point. The modern hygiene practices gone overboard really make sure that we reduce that exposure, and so therefore you don't develop a normal gut flora, and therefore when your immune system gets out into the world, it goes over the top sometimes. One of two things will happen: the kids will either get sick, or they'll start to develop autoimmunity, right? Which is where they start to react to themselves, and that's where it shows up in what are called the atopic illnesses. They're not infectious, but they're inflammatory and they're ones where you attack yourself, such as asthma, allergies, eczema. Those are classic signs of an immune system that's actually not regulating itself properly and attacking it. And so if you want to read more about this, there's a very good book called Dirt is Good. It's got a great shot of 2 dirty hands in mud. Little kid out there playing there. Kids need that. They need to get and explore their world to actually develop a normal immune system.
Yeah. So, my mother grew up on a farm and she's around manure all the time and dirt, and she's 94 and she's doing pretty good, So I guess that was good for her. So how can we best support our immune system? Well, you need a whole food diet. So you need to eat real food. Okay. So I think we've already gone over what that is. And you may need to avoid, you may have wheat and gluten sensitivity to certain foods. If you do, you need to avoid those foods, and you can find out if you have them. Sometimes how you feel when you eat them will tell you. minimize sugar, alcohol, processed and refined foods. Regular exercise has been is very important, and avoid pharmaceuticals as much as possible. There's let me see what the next slide is. Yeah, there's a man, a pediatric endocrinologist by the name of Robert Lustig, and I've got 2 of his books in my library. I watched his videos. Great guy, and very much into this understanding how food affects our bodies. And he says his mantra is this: if you want to be healthy, you need to feed your gut and protect your liver. Okay, feed your gut, protect your liver. So how do you protect your liver? We talked about feeding your gut. We're going to talk about more about that. How do you protect your liver? What screws up your liver? What causes your liver not to work right? Alcohol would be one, right? Okay. Anything else? You don't know. Okay, it's okay. That's why you're here. High fructose corn syrup, sugar. Okay, fructose, processed fructose screws up. It does the same thing to your liver that alcohol does. Okay, doesn't do the same thing to your brain necessarily, at least not in the short term. Does the same thing. That's why we have kids now with fatty liver disease that are 8, 9 years old. They're eating too much sugar. You didn't see that in the 70s and 80s. You see it now. Kids with fatty liver disease, they're not drinking, they're not getting drunk, they're not drinking Budweiser, but they have fatty liver disease. Okay, sugar messes up your liver, and fructose is shunted to the liver. It causes fatty liver, it causes your uric acid levels to go up, your blood pressure to go up. And what are some of the things you get high fructose corn syrup in? Processed food, pop, right? Soda. Okay. Yeah, high fructose corn syrup, by the way, was discovered where? Anybody know? What? Yeah, he discovered it. It was discovered in Japan in 1975. And, of course, it's made its way over here now, that's for sure. So what about supplements to strengthen immunity? These are some of the ones that I use. Echinacea, powerful supplement for immunity. I use Andrographis for acute infections and Astragalus for chronic infections. They work really well. They're herbal supplements. Now, the thing about herbs that I really like is herbs tend to work on body function. So herbs can do some of the same things that pharmaceuticals can do, except you don't get any of the side effects. Okay, you get the functional response, but not the side effects. And a lot of herbs have multiple functions. We'll talk about that. Whole food vitamin C, very important. Vitamin D, really important for immunity. Zinc and trace minerals.
Real quick,
Yes.
for folks at home and here, if they look at their bottle sign and say I get 1,000 milligrams of ascorbic acid, why would that not be optimal compared to something?
Because ascorbic acid is just part of the vitamin C. It's the antioxidant part of vitamin C. It's not the whole complex. Vitamin C is a very, very complex nutrient. It has a lot of things in it. It has copper in it. It has tyrosinase in it, which is really good for the thyroid. It has rutin and bioflavonoids. But the vitamin C that you get usually is just the antioxidant part. So you need the whole food complex for it to work right. Ascorbic acid is just part of vitamin C. So intestinal, these are some of the things that I use for leaky gut and gut healing. I'm going to talk about a little bit about, let's see, berberine. So I'm not going to go through all of these. Berberine is one of my favorite supplements. It's an herbal supplement, and it does 3 things that are very, very powerful. That's why I like it so much. Number 1, berberine kills bad bacteria in the gut, and it allows good bacteria to flourish. So it doesn't hurt the good bacteria, but it kills the bad bacteria. Berberine also acts like a natural metformin. So it really helps regulate and lower blood sugar. Another thing that berberine does that's really good is it helps lower high cholesterol. So if you have really high cholesterol and high blood sugar, and your gut's messed up, which it probably is if you have high blood sugar and high cholesterol, berberine will really help that a lot. So these are products that I use. I don't use every single one of these on every person that has leaky gut, but I do use all of these at some point. So poor gut health negatively affects immune function. This is what leaky gut looks like. So bacteria and bacterial products and viruses go through the intestinal wall. They get into the blood, and that creates inflammation and autoimmunity. So here's a great study about chiropractic therapy and what effect that has on the gut microbiome. Lynn, you want to talk about that one?
As I was doing a literature search for this class, I thought, is there anything that I can find that talks about this third part of the immune system where we're trying to build a better gut to have better immune response? And I found this article in this journal from 2020. So this would be a very expensive study to do with humans. I hope they do it someday, but they start always with animals. So they started with rats. What they showed was when they did what would be the equivalent of an adjustment to a 3-week-old rat, it changed the richness and diversity of their gut microbiota, meaning the germs that live there, and increased the butyrate producing bacteria and decreased the one that you don't want to have a lot of, which is lactobacillus, and also attenuated the response of your immune system. It tends to be the autoimmune part of it too. Just getting adjusted does all those things for you. Now, does that mean that adjustment puts these things in your gut? Only if Dr. Paul and I have dirty hands. That'd be the only way that would happen. What it means is that we're actually making your immune system work better because your nerves can tell the gut what it's already trying to do better. Does that make sense? So again, it's not like either chiropractic or better nutrition. It's like both and the two together work very well to make sure that your gut lining gets healed up well and you actually have less of a chance to actually have not only illness and the infection, but also just the auto or overreactive part of your immune system too.
Okay, so now I want to ask you guys a question. Are you going to do anything differently because of this talk? Anybody going to do anything that they haven't done before, or they're going to stop doing something that they're doing now? Anybody? Okay, Lori.
Try to get less sugar.
Okay, good job. Madeline.
I was intrigued by the one berberine. I've been studying different herbs, and berberine comes up quite often.
Yeah, berberine is a great herb. Use it all the time. And another thing you can do is we're passing out a sheet that shows foods that have water soluble fibers. Okay, very, very good for gut function. So like sweet potatoes, avocados, apples, celery. These are whole food. Grapefruit. These are foods that you can eat that really feed the gut microbiome. So you want to feed that microbiome and you want to protect your liver. Okay. So any questions anybody has? Yes, Paul.
Kind of odd. It's about sweet potatoes that you mentioned. That I'm having some kidney issues, and some of the literature says that sweet potatoes are not good for kidney. And so they said that if you soak them, though, that will help. What elements or vitamins and minerals in the sweet potato would be harmful to kidney function that you know of?
I have no idea. I don't know. I've never even heard that.
They didn't explain exactly what element it was. They just said it was stressed out.
They didn't mention like Mountain Dew or Coca-Cola.
No.
Okay. Oh, those dreaded sweet potatoes. I don't know how to answer that. You got me stumped. Anybody else? Okay, everything's clear as mud, huh? Okay. Well, thank you for taking a half hour out of your life to find out more about how the immune system works. One of the things that I found just personally, and there's some evidence to back this up, is that when you exercise in cold, like when you go out in the cold in the wintertime and exercise, there's a very powerful immune boosting effect. So if you like take a walk in the wintertime, you dress down a little bit, don't dress too warm. That really boosts your immune system. I do that. I've been doing that for many years now, and it's very, very powerful. And there's some really good evidence for that now, that cold is very, and I don't know how it works exactly, but it's very good for the immune system to do the exercise in cold weather. Anybody else? Okay. Okay, everybody wants to go out and exercise in cold weather, I bet. No, right? Yeah. Not really, huh? Okay, great. Thanks for coming tonight.
Oh, yes. You want to turn off over there, guys? Yeah, that'll be great. So